In 1981, IBM launched a machine they called the personal computer, and that name redefined an entire industry. Now, over 4 decades later, Perplexity has deliberately reached back and grabbed that same phrase for their always-on Mac Mini. This isn't branding nostalgia, it's a calculated signal that something fundamental is shifting again. The phrase personal computer carries extraordinary historical weight. IBM used it to signify that computation had moved from corporate mainframes into individual hands. Perplexity is making the same kind of claim now, that AI has moved from corporate cloud servers into your personal space, permanently resident on your desk, working on your behalf around the clock. The echo is intentional, and the stakes are just as high. Almost all AI interaction today is pull-based. You open a tab, you type, you wait, you close the tab, and the conversation dies. It's fundamentally transactional. What Perplexity is describing is something closer to a persistent colleague who never clocks out. One who is reading your emails, tracking your calendar, indexing your files, and building a cumulative model of your priorities even while you sleep. That mental model shift is more disruptive than any benchmark improvement. The entire architecture of enterprise software, login, work, logout, was designed around human attention spans and server costs, not around what's actually optimal for intelligence. An agent with persistent file system access, calendar context, and network reach doesn't reset when you close the lid. It accumulates days and weeks of behavioral signal and builds a working model of what actually matters to you versus what you merely scheduled. That's a fundamentally different kind of software than anything most organizations have deployed. The privacy conversation around always-on AI usually focuses on data leakage or surveillance, but the more interesting question is epistemological. If your AI agent has been processing your life for 6 weeks straight and surfaces a conclusion you wouldn't have reached yourself, how do you evaluate that? Do you trust reasoning built from observations you weren't conscious of making? The agent watched longer than you were paying attention, and that asymmetry has no good precedent in human decision-making history. Perplexity put a consumer face on this shift, but OpenAI's technical notes this week revealed parallel construction happening at the infrastructure layer. Tighter execution loops, file system context for agents, network access with guardrails built into the Responses API. These are the plumbing choices that make persistent agents reliable rather than experimental. Multiple major players are converging on the same architectural bet simultaneously, which is usually a signal that the transition is real and imminent. The Mac Mini inside Perplexity's personal computer is a standard Apple Silicon box you could buy at any Apple store. The actual product is the philosophical assumption baked into shipping it this way, that your AI should have persistent context about you always, not episodically. Any company could have shipped this hardware. Very few were willing to make this claim about what that hardware should be doing at 2 a.m. while you're asleep. That audacity is the real differentiator. Platform shifts rarely announce themselves with entirely new vocabulary. The iPhone was still called a phone. The cloud was still called a server. Perplexity calling this the personal computer is the same move, familiar language wrapped around something that will behave completely differently from anything that came before. Whether this exact product succeeds is almost beside the point. The category it's naming, ambient persistent AI with full context access, is coming regardless, and it will reshape what personal computing means for the next generation.